So can we talk a little bit about the actual product, the modules, how you sell it, how you price it, how you break it down to different functions, maybe one layer below what we've been talking about? I don't know who should take that question. Maybe Ethan, you
Ethan,
start.
you can go
So,
ahead. I'm pretty
I
sure.
can
Yeah.
I can jump in and take first pass at this.
yeah,
So we are modularized. Obviously to get the most benefit out of QBI, you would be fully integrated and use everything that QBI has to offer. But of course, that doesn't necessarily meet every business model. If you're purely a developer, you may not need advanced technical analytics, for example, on the operations side.
I have a question here. So, I've lived in the software industry, in the tech industry, in the earlier part of my career, starting 30 plus years ago. So I'm somewhat familiar with major software solutions. Like, for example, does I don't even know, like on the developer business, like if you're a development shop, big one or medium-sized one. I've done some small-size development myself. Never, it was a pretty small team, so we didn't really put a lot of software into what we were doing. But do developers even use like a CRM platform, for example? Like, is there a need to maybe develop to manage like Salesforce? Is that a thing that is common in the world of development? I'm thinking maybe they could manage the land rights or the all the small possibilities that might become bigger developments. Do they manage that? Do you ever see companies trying to do that on existing platforms like that?
So from my experience working with some of these developers as their vendor, and they being my
Yeah.
customer, I've seen a whole spectrum of various solutions to try to track their opportunities, track their responsibilities, track their milestones. And I've seen everything from fairly,
Basecamp,
fairly
like
built out Salesforce instances, as an example, all the way down to, hey, I just have a couple of Excel spreadsheets and I use
or
Outlook.
Airtable
Yeah.
or whatever. Yeah,
Right,
got it.
right.
Yeah,
So what I haven't seen is really a bespoke custom solution specifically for renewable energy developers
yeah,
until now.
that makes sense. And so you guys are essentially a SaaS platform, and that's how you price it and
Yep.
productize it. And so please
Yes.
go on. Yeah. So
Yeah,
how,
so we are modularized, as I was saying. Fundamentally, we start at the core module, which is a lot of the as it implies, the core functionality of QBI, your task management systems, managing your opportunities, managing your development timelines, managing your milestones, document management, etc. All of the things that are really core to running that business. That is then priced on a scaling basis, and it scales up with the amount of resources that you need to accomplish the tasks at hand, which roughly parallels to the number of systems and the number of users you have. Though we are not priced on a per user basis explicitly, so that allows you to temporarily add one additional user without having to deal with updating your contract and changing your pricing schedule. But if you suddenly say double your team, then you'll want to increase the amount of resources. Then of course that comes with a price increase. Then on top of that, we have several different modules aimed at several different areas of concern. We have our technical analytics module, which is really oriented towards the asset managers, the folks who need to have a very deep and robust understanding of what's going on from a technical level within their systems. What events are happening? How is their performance? Is their generation on par? How does that compare with their expected generation based on weather, et cetera, et cetera? We then have our financial analytics, which parallels very nicely, as it might imply, with the technical analytics. So this is now people who need to understand the financial health of their assets and their organization. So it goes beyond just, are my systems performing the way that they should be performing? And if not, why? To now, are my finances where they should be? Not only is my generation where it should be, but also what does that translate into dollars and cents based on my PPA, based on my other rate schedules, as well as now, how are my costs looking? Is my EPC not only performing the way they should from a technical perspective and keeping my system online and running, but are their expenses also in line with what they forecasted, what they projected? And if not, where does that deviation exist? Are my invoices coming in and being paid in time and on time and in full? And really taking a whole holistic look at my business. Is my business performing as it should be from a financial perspective? And then lastly, we have our invoicing module as well. So regardless of whether you have a fairly simple invoicing structure or a wildly complex invoicing structure spread across dozens, if not hundreds of customers. We can help you manage your invoicing on an automated basis so that you get those out on time and correctly on a monthly, quarterly, yearly basis, whatever that may be. And then of course, track the payment status. So you can see again, not only is my generation, but is my revenue coming in and are my customers paying in full and on time? The pricing scheme for the technical analytics is on a per megawatt basis. So the more assets you bring in, the cost goes up, of course. But if you start with a very limited portfolio, your pricing will be much lower in conjunction with the size of your portfolio. Financial analytics is then priced similarly in complexity, but it's on a per SPV, per subsidiary company basis. So the more complex your financial structure is, of course, the more expensive the platform becomes, but the more value we can offer you as you're trying to manage a vastly more complex organization. And then the invoicing module is simply priced on a per invoice basis, and it scales down as well. So the more invoices you manage with us, the per invoice cost comes down as well.
Thanks for that. Santiago, anything to add on top of that?
No,
maybe yeah, go ahead.
No, I would just say that we really gave a lot of thought to how the pricing should reflect the reality of every team behind. I mean, is there a perfect system to price? There are dozens of books and very smart people, always think about how to price. Our experience is that this model works. The customers and the prospect we talk to, they understand why we priced it like this. And then overall, what they see is, hey, I'm a small developer. You mentioned it before, Karim, I'm a small developer, and yet this helps me, and yet I see the value, and the price tag is linked to this. Am I a multi-gigawatt IPP, multi-country, multi-technology? Of course, the price tag that I'm paying on every month is high, but the bang for the buck I get is extremely big, because the bigger I am, the lower the per megawatt or per SPV or whatever I am getting. So it is really well thought of. That I think that's the most important thing for us, is to make sure that we are creating the value. And then you turn the thing, see the price tag, and say, this makes sense.
Makes sense.
I think the price, and I've gotten very little, essentially no negative feedback on pricing with everybody that I've been speaking with since I started here. It does scale and correlate very, very closely with the value that you get out of QBI. So as your organization grows, as your needs become more complex, as your revenue grows, the price for QBI goes up, but of course, also the value that you get out of QBI goes up even more so than the price for the platform itself.